Hello and welcome back to Inspirability Part 2. Today we continue our conversation with former Marine, pilot and presenter Arthur Williams. So tell me a bit about that transition, and did you ever think you would end up broadcasting?
That was a funny one, really. I think the broadcasting career came about by fluke because, like you've just mentioned, I was spending money hand over fist on flying, and my friends knew this as well, and one of them sent me an article that was in one of the newspapers at the time, and it stated that Channel 4 were looking for 50% of their broadcasters for the London 2012 Paralympic Games to have disability. And at the top of this newspaper cutting, my friend had written on it, and he goes, "Arthur, put in for this because you need a job, you're not bad looking, and I won't mention the next bit." He said, "You're gobby. Let's just say you're gobby." And so I was like, okay, fine. So I emailed Channel 4 and I was like, what's this all about? What's this search? There was an email at the bottom of the thingy. And they were like, it's exactly what it says on the tin. We want 50% of our broadcasters, our presenting team for the Paralympic Games to have disability. And I never, ever entertained the idea of being on television in any form whatsoever. It's not the sort of thing you go through school thinking, oh, I'm going to be on TV. I want to be on TV. I'm going to be a television presenter. It's not the sort of thing I would ever consider. So anyway, I was very much into the world of the unknown at this point. So what did they ask me? Yeah, they asked me to record a video of myself talking about something passionately for 2 or 3 minutes. And I said to my brother, I was like, Freddie, grab that phone. We need to go. We went to Wellesbourne Airfield. And I asked the flying club there, is it all right if we just borrow one of your airplanes? I just need to record something. And they were like, yeah, it's fine, fill your boots. So we went out onto the apron and sat on the wing of this airplane. And I remember having done nothing ever to a camera before. I remember sitting on the wing of this camera with my brother, got the phone, and he goes, right, go. And I go, hi. And we just burst out laughing. Like, literally, it was the most hilarious thing ever. And then we were like, composed ourselves after 5 minutes, and it was like, right, okay, come on, take seriously. Okay, hi, I'm Arthur. And then fell about laughing. And it was a really slow process, and we weren't really getting anywhere. And we abandoned the day. And then I remember I was like, no, come on, I've got to give this, be serious, like try and take this seriously. And so I went to my local park and I did a self-shot video. I think I leant my phone up against a tree or something. And I did this video on how I used my racing wheelchair. So I used racing chairs at the time in order to stay fit because I was a good runner and that kind of felt like a good thing to do. And so I explained the ins and outs of this racing wheelchair and how to get in and out of it. And they loved it. They'd never seen anything quite like it. And so they invited me down for interviews and long story short, they trained me up, and 18 months after that moment, I presented the afternoon show for Channel 4's coverage of the London 2012 Paralympic Games with about 6 million viewers live. It was incredible.
How did that feel? You've got 6 million people watching you and it's live.
Horrifically terrifying, like the worst feeling ever. But I think I'm blessed in some way that I have a very small mind that is incapable of understanding what that is. So it might be 6 million people, and there's no way in a million years could I address a room full of 6 million people. No way. But it's only a little camera with a red light on it. So that's all you see. And so you, again, just going into the motions and just going through, right, well, what do I need to do? I need to talk about this, and then I'm going to ask that, and then I'm going to talk about this. And so you just go through it. And remember, like, what we were saying about putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, step by step.
And the 30-mile test, feeling like a tidal wave that's rearing up in front of you, and it doesn't matter how hard I try, I'm not going to overcome it, but you do. It was exactly the same when we started broadcasting in September 2012. That feeling of, I am going to fail this catastrophically, and you don't.
You didn't. No, it's just breaking it down, isn't it?
Yeah.
In individual stages and steps, and doing your training, and it kicks in, and that's amazing.
So that's how I got involved with television.
So sometimes, it was your friend who suggested it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes the people around us know us better than we do, than we know ourselves.
Oh, it's true.
Have you found that with your friends?
Massively so, yeah. Your friends are very good at looking outside the box, aren't they? When you have your head so buried in a project or something, you become blindsided by your way of seeing things, and you can't really see other ways of doing it. I can be quite stubborn, I think, and damn-minded. And I think your friends are great for offering perspective on what really matters and perhaps offering ways of helping. Yeah, certainly.
How do you keep perspective?
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know, actually. I don't know how I keep perspective. I don't know if I do. I think I just keep going at stuff. If I've seen something that I like and I want to do, and I just keep going at it, I think. And then maybe when I've finished it, I will step back and go, was that a good thing to do, or was that not such a good thing to do? Yeah.
So tell me a bit more about your broadcasting then since the 2012 Olympics.
So after the Paralympics...
Sorry, 2012 Paralympics.
Yeah. After the Paralympics, we did really well. Won a BAFTA for our coverage. The team did, and so you then become like the hottest thing, in Channel 4 at the time, and it was the largest live broadcast they'd had in their history, their 30-year history, and we nailed it. They did something. It's a whole another story that I'll need another number of hours to talk to you about, but it was a real risky thing that they did in taking on the broadcast rights to the games and putting people like myself who knew nothing about television in front of the cameras to anchor their main coverage of the games, their most important event ever. It was huge, and it was extremely risky, but it paid off. And so after that, you attend a few parties, and there are obviously lots of different departments within Channel 4, not just sport or live events. You've got specialist factual, you've got history, you've got drama, entertainment, and documentaries. And I obviously have a military background. I love my history, I love my aeroplanes, and I quite enjoy television. And so we're at these parties, and I remember early hours of the morning, there was one commissioning editor, a guy called John Hay, he's a lovely man, at Channel 4, and he came, and we were at the bar, and he was like, Arthur, let's do some documentary work. I know you're an ex-Marine, and I know that you're a pilot. It's got to be something we can do. And so we're spitballing, and we're coming up with ideas of like, yeah, let's do, I don't know, like, let's restore the most rare version of an aeroplane ever made, and then we'll fly it around the world solo. And it's like, nah. And we got to the end of the night, and we're more and more intoxicated, and always the best ideas are the most simple ones, right? And he just simply went, what's your favourite aeroplane? And I went, the Mosquito. And he was like, what's the Mosquito? Never heard of it. And I started waxing lyrical about this beautiful wooden wonder. And right then he goes, there's your documentary, go and make it. Make me a 1 hour documentary on the de Havilland Mosquito. And that's how I did The Plane That Saved Britain, and got into broadcast media and flying. And I was starting to then, from that point, see a route where I can merge my passion for flying and my broadcasting career. And so we did the documentary on The Plane That Saved Britain about the Mosquito, and yeah, that did really well. And yeah, so that's how it started.
It's amazing, isn't it, how life just takes you in these directions that you don't expect. And sometimes these opportunities come up, like, you're chatting, like your friend makes a suggestion, you go for it, and then you do this incredible job, absolutely smashing the coverage of the 2012 Paralympics. And then you're meeting people, and then they're like, hey, do a documentary on your favourite aeroplane, and you absolutely smash that. So what have you been doing since then?
Yeah, well then, after that, I did 2 series called Flying to the Ends of the Earth for Channel 4 again, where they sent me to the furthest flung corners of the earth.
Where did you go?
Oh, right. We started in Nepal, and then we flew with the Russians in Nepal. Then we went to West Papua and Australia, Fiji and Vanuatu, Siberia, Northern Canada in the summer, Peru. Where else did we go? I think that's pretty much it.
What was your favourite place out of those? Or did you have a favourite place?
I don't think I have a favourite place because they were all so different in so many ways. Nepal was amazing just because of the peacefulness of it. This vast landscape in the Himalayas with mountains rearing up above you and down below. And all you can hear is a very light breeze and cattle bells of just cows just wandering around. And maybe people herding, like, I don't know, yaks around or whatever. That was amazing. Learning some of the stories about what was going on over there. Australia for the endless sky. You could be on like a cattle station and just almost see the curvature of the earth and the clouds just going down like that. Infinite visibility. Siberia for the cold and just unpleasant people. Peru for the gold mines and the Nazca Desert. Oh yeah, loads of places. I loved all of them. They were amazing.
So farm strip flying then. Tell me about farm strip flying.
What is farm strip flying? Farm strip flying is farm strip flying is I suppose a really cool little flying school that I have with a colleague of mine called Matt Coles, who flies for British Airways on the 777. He set it up in 2019 with a Piper Cub, and it is what it says. It's farm strip flying. So we get private pilots, commercial pilots, old, young, whatever level of skill and experience base. And they come down to the farm and we do mainly tailwheel difference training, but we also do our farm strip flying course. So where we're based in Worcestershire is perfectly located geographically. So as we have loads and loads of small, unique, different, challenging farm strips within an hour's flying time. And so we, start at the learner fields like Shobden, Wellesbourne, Gloucester, and we fine-hone those general handling techniques and stick and rudder skills with the tailwheel side of things, how to operate an aeroplane like the Piper Cub, how to get the feel for it, reconnect pilots with the feel for it. And then we go around and we do farm strip flying tours, and we'll get in and we'll assess the risks and the challenges and what makes things interesting and what makes things different. And pilots will just come along and fly with us and just have a load of fun, just operating this aeroplane into loads of little beautiful farm strips. And it's just good fun. It's just good fun.
And we're going to put links to it as well, I believe, in the show notes of this podcast as well, for anybody who wants to join you at Farm Strip Flying. That
would be great. Yeah, we've got a pretty active social media, Instagram, Facebook page. We've also got a website as well with all the information, where we are, how to get in touch. There's a contact form at the bottom of their landing page. So yeah, if you want to come along and do some flying, then get in touch. Yeah, you'll love it. Honestly, it's good fun.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds incredible. I can't wait. I will be contacting you about it. So tell me, the aircraft itself, how is that adapted for you to fly?
Good question. So once I'd done my flying with Aerobility, I was kind of, a pilot's license holder, and I was out into the big wide world of, well, what do I do now? Where do I go? What do I want to see and do with this license? And I knew for me the next challenge that I wanted to do was tailwheel flying. Like I wanted to experience some fun, and I'd heard a lot about the challenges that tailwheel airplanes present, the dreaded ground loop and all of this stuff. So I thought, well, obviously an airplane's got to be modified. And I didn't know of any tailwheel aircraft that were modified. And so I started going around the clubs and looking in and around hangars and looking for airplanes that I could go, that might actually work. And I was at Enstone, and I was flying one of their club aircraft, and at the back of the hangar was an L4, a Piper L4 Cub. And I remember thinking, yeah, everybody talks about the Cub as being like this beautiful, easy to fly, relatively simple, or very simple and low cost aircraft. It seems to tick all of the boxes. So I poked my head in the cockpit, and I had looked down at the rudder pedals, and I thought, well, I'm pretty practically minded. I'm no aeroplane engineer, but all I saw was two steel tubes that poked up from the thing. And I thought, well, that can't be too difficult to modify. And so I got in touch with an engineer, and I said, I'd love to think about modifying a Cub. Is it something that we could do? And they were on board, and we started, modifying a Piper Cub. I was lucky enough to be able to acquire one, and over a process, I think it took about 18 months, I think, from the point of going, I want to modify one of these, to it getting signed off and flying. And that's how I did it. So that's how I started flying the Piper Cub. And anyway, the modifications, sorry. So in the aircraft, obviously your feet control the rudder pedals. And so with PA-28s, you've got like a hand control that's bolted on to the existing rudder pedals. With the Cub, being a tailwheel, it's slightly different. It has to be a little bit more involved than that. So because you need throttle and braking and rudder all at the same time with a tailwheel, I needed one control that could do really everything. So in my right hand, I have the stick, which controls obviously pitch and roll. And then on the left-hand side of the cockpit, I've got a hand control, which I move forward and back. It's forward for right rudder and back for left. And then on the top of that, there's an unsprung motorcycle twist grip, so I can manipulate the throttle by twisting my wrist like that. And then there is also on each of the two controls a brake lever for differential braking. So I've got left and right. So it sounds like there's quite a lot going on, but it's fairly intuitive. It's pretty simple, and it works really well. I've done several hundred hours on that aeroplane, and touch wood, not come to any grief just yet. But it works well.
But here at Aerobility, we've also got specially modified aircraft, adapted aircraft, as you know.
Yeah.
Do you think there are misconceptions that are faced by wheelchair users using aircraft that we need to overcome?
People have seen me in a wheelchair, obviously, and for many people have actually mentioned it, and they've said, "Didn't even realise you were in a wheelchair," because that's not what I'm geared up to see. It's like what's the phrase, like information bias or something, when you want
bias,
when you want to see something, that's all you can see. So
yeah.
I think people see you in a wheelchair and they were like, "Oh, I didn't even twig, actually, even though you asked me to push your wheelchair into the hangar, I didn't even realise that you were disabled," because it's like I mentioned at the beginning of our chat, it's just so outside of disability, like that's not the point, with the flying is the point. And so the disability becomes such a backward thing, an aside point, that I don't think it twigs with a lot of people. But I think members of the general public, I don't know. I think that people, from what I've seen in other like house renovations and stuff like that, I think members of the public believe people with disabilities are a lot less capable than what they actually are. I generally think that about everybody. If you are an able-bodied member of the public and you see somebody with disability, your default setting is that they are capable of doing far less than what they actually are. And I think that has quite a lot to do with the fact that we don't want to feel awkward and we don't want to see anybody with a disability struggle. So therefore, we're prepared to step in a lot earlier or sooner than what we perhaps should. And so, yeah.
And what do you think we can do to improve accessibility of aviation to wheelchair users?
Oof, good question. Well, I think it's the little things. I mean, so I instruct around a number of fields. And one of the ways in which we've built accessibility is by introducing wheelchairs into a lot of the airfields that we fly from and stuff. And that helps a lot. So, yeah, that's one way in which we do it. And
also it's visible role models as well, because I think, you're saying earlier, wheelchair users, you didn't necessarily think that you'd be able to operate an aircraft.
Yeah.
But, they're specially adapted and, visible role models such as you. And broadcasting as well, you're so visible that it can really help inspire people to actually take that step to get in an aircraft.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm mentioning, one practical ways of introducing more accessibility to aviation is, like, I instruct around a number of airfields, Shobden, Wellesbourne and Gloucester and things like this, and Wolverhampton, Halfpenny Green, and I was like, right, well, when I've landed, if I've got somebody in the back or I can't take my wheelchair with me. So we would fly to a location, do some circuits, have some lunch, only I wouldn't be able to get out of the aeroplane and have some lunch, And so that was a problem. And so what we did was actually the airfield purchased a number of wheelchairs that they just keep there. So when I land, out comes the chair and away we go. And they're not anything glamorous. They're big, cumbersome things, but it means I can go to the loo. It means I can have some lunch and everybody's happy, and that's just one simple way in which you can do it. And it boils down to, doesn't it, accessibility around the airfields and things, putting ramps in where necessary, having facilities downstairs and stuff like this. And also thinking about non-visible disabilities too, awareness and stuff like this, and everything that's required there. But it's about awareness, isn't it, really? I think if you need to make as much noise as possible, then if people are aware of it, then they can help. And I think the biggest way of creating accessibility is people's open-mindedness and being prepared to accommodate those that might need a little extra assistance.
Yeah, and it's like you say, like just having the wheelchairs purchased by the airfields, it's not a big step for them to have to take, but it makes
Yeah.
it completely different for you. It transforms your day. You know, it means you can get out of the aircraft and
Oh, absolutely.
have lunch. Yeah, you know.
Massively. It's massively the case. I remember when the first year I started teaching, I watched one of my guys go off solo, and the only way I could do it was by, you'll laugh, but I got out of the aircraft at Shobden. They piggybacked me onto the back of the 4x4 fire truck, which then drove to the side of the runway, and I sat on the back of this fire truck watching this guy go and do a couple of circuits before then coming back. And that was before they had the wheelchair there. Anyway, it was quite funny, I thought. Everybody thought it was hilarious. I did too.
So some of the other things we were talking about, which about Mastermind earlier. Do you want to talk about this?
No.
No.
Yeah. Yes, you can ask me about Mastermind.
So what was more interesting was the story behind it. So do you want to just give us a brief outline of what happened?
What, Mastermind? So I was, it was in the middle of lockdown, I think, or in the early stages of lockdown, and I got invited to go and do, Celebrity Mastermind.
If you want to cut this later, by the way, just let us know, all right?
And I foolishly said yes, I will do it because it might be quite good fun. But I started getting this terrible sense of, Arthur, mate, come on, no, this is not a good idea for you. And so the demons started coming into my head and sabotaging my brain and pulling all of the wires out of the back. And I came up with this idea that we're in a setting like we are now. Lights are on you, you're in a chair, the spotlight is very much on you, it's dark all around, and you're being bombarded with questions. Doesn't matter what the questions are, you're being bombarded with them. And I was like, it's quite an intimidating setting. If you get one of them wrong, it's just going to cascade out of control. And I thought, right, well, just don't get any of them wrong. And you got John Humphreys there. He's asking you the questions. You know, there isn't any like, it'll be all right. Don't worry. We're going to take it nice and easy. It's going to be fine. You don't meet the guy until you sit in the chair with him, and he's bang, 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 asking the questions. And sure enough, the first one he asked, I don't know, I was doing a Homer Simpson monkey with a symbol in my brain. I was away. I didn't quite get the beginning of it, and they can't repeat the question, I don't think. And I just didn't, and I was like, what? Sorry. And I passed. I think I passed on the first one. I got it wrong. And then I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Like the worst case scenario that I'd made in my mind was actually becoming a reality. And I was making myself look stupid, incorrectly answering some of the most simple questions. And sure enough, it did. That was the general knowledge segment. However, my specialist subject was military allied aircraft of the Second World War. And I think I did all right at that. So that's okay. Because I would have been like... They actually said before I went on, they were like, for aeroplanes and media is kind of your thing. So as a disclaimer, if you get these wrong and look silly, it might jeopardize parts that you have. And I was like, why am I doing this risk? What have I got
So they said that to you. So that probably triggered your mindset slightly.
Yeah.
So this is a really interesting example of mindset.
Yeah.
So what do you think happened? And what would you maybe hope that our listeners and viewers could take away from it?
Well, it's a perfect example of self-sabotage. I had this horrible fear or demon or scenario in my head, which would probably be fairly unlikely if I didn't let it manifest and grow and grow and grow into the point where it became the only outcome on reality. That, I think, is what you should try to avoid. It's what I've taken away from the experience of what I'm going to learn to not do, is any doubt or anything like that you've got coming into your head is silly, just knock it out. Get rid of it. Don't pay attention to it. Focus on the positives. Sounds like such a motivational cliche, doesn't it? Focus on the positives. But I've learned from that experience, that's really what you've got to do.
Yeah, that's sort of, it's like catastrophizing, isn't it? And it's avoiding catastrophizing,
Big
which
time.
is really easy to do. If you're stressed about something or something happens and you have a wobble, it's very easy to think, and this could happen, and this, and this, and this, and before you know it. And it's worse when it's late at night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. Well, a remedy to that is always have a notepad and pen by the side of your bed. You heard of that one?
Good. Yeah.
So you write down anything. If you can't sleep, write it all down and you pick it up in the morning.
Do you do that?
I have done. I don't do it on a daily basis because I'm a pretty good sleeper. But yeah, I have done that before. If I get a bit of insomnia, write stuff down.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So tell me a bit about your filming now with National Geographic and your series Defending Europe.
Yeah, so projects that we're working on at the moment, Defending Europe for Nat Geo. Basically, it is each episode of the series focuses on a different country around Europe and how that country's defended itself from the Dark Ages all the way up to Cold War and modern day. The first series that we did went out in October I think it was October last year. Might have even been later than that, might have been November. Oh, anyway, I don't know, time flies. And so, for example, we did Finland, and we looked at 3 different periods of history throughout Finland: Second World War, the Finn-Russian War, and then I did the Cold War. So got to go and explore some really cool nuclear bunkers and things like this, like tennis courts and gymnasium that's underneath, 50 foot of concrete and all of this. Go to France around the Maginot Line. In the UK, having a look at resistance bunkers should the Germans have invaded. We went to look at the Spanish Civil War, air raid shelters and stuff like that. So really quite good fun history series. If you're into history, then it'll be a good one to watch, because it's kind of like abandoned engineering meets history kind of a thing. Yeah,
I love abandoned engineering.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
So that's released already?
No, so so the first series has already come out. You probably catch that on some sort of Nat Geo catch up of some description, and we should be starting producing the next one any minute now.
Fantastic. And any other exciting projects for the future?
No, just farm strip flying, I guess, really. No more media stuff in the pipeline at the moment. So, yeah.
Amazing. So is there anything that, just as we wrap up, that you would like to share with our viewers and listeners, or maybe even if you could go back to Arthur, say 20 years ago, that you would like to share and that you wish you'd known?
I think, I would say, 2 things. Don't stop yourself from doing something. If you've got a feeling or a desire or a want or a gut instinct that says, I want to give that a go, do it. Just do it. And secondly, there's no such thing as a bad opportunity. You can do things sometimes and they might not lead to anything, and they might not do, they might lead to, you might be worse off for doing them. But I think you've learned something. 9 times out of 10, the opportunities that I've pursued in life have always led to pretty cool stuff, and have taken me to things that you would never have ever dreamt of. You would never have ever thought that would lead to that, but it did. And so, pursue every opportunity, pursue every lead. And if you want to do something, if you provided it's legal and moral, then go for it, I think.
And what's next in terms of your broadcasting career? I mean, we've talked about Defending Europe. Is there anything else to share with us?
No, not at the moment. I love being where I am at the moment with my broadcast. I love National Geographic as a channel, and I love being in the history sphere. One area that I would like to do more of, that I'm constantly plugging and people are always asking me, is aviation. Like General Aviation at the moment in the UK is going through a really tough time, and things are going to get harder as well. I think with the new government and our big old Second World War airfields that are prime development property, General Aviation is unfortunately just getting squashed on all sides. And so I think, that's, for me, General Aviation is my passion, it's my sport, it's where I like to be, it's my social environment. GA are my friends, and that's where I want to be. I want to do my bit. And so broadcasting is one way in which I can help. So I'm constantly plugging new ideas for singing the praises of flying, and why more people should get involved in it, and why developers should leave us alone and politics should leave us alone. But that's one thing I would love to do more of, is flying and broadcasting, definitely.
You're a brilliant ambassador for GA, so thank you.
No, thank you. That's a compliment. Thanks.
Well, I've had a brilliant chat with you today, Arthur, so thank you so much.
No, me
Thanks
too.
for sharing your story. It's absolutely brilliant, and you've just done so many fascinating things, and your story has just gone in all these different directions. It's such an amazing example of how life just doesn't take you where you think it's going to, but it can end up, with some incredible opportunities.
Yes,
so thank you for your time. Thank you for your openness and your honesty, and look forward to our next conversation in the future. And please take me flying.
Yeah, all right.